Hello. The Texas Deafblind Project, which is within the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired, or TSBVI, presents to you on the topic of interactions and connections, following your child's lead with your conversation. This presentation was developed by the entire Texas Deafblind Project team, and there are 3 of us involved in today's presentation. Me, I'm Heather Withrow. I'm the Deafblind Transition Consultant. Edgenie Bellah, that's our Family Engagement Coordinator. And Hillary Keys, the Early Childhood Consultant. Interaction is for everyone. We do it at all ages, young to old. And it doesn't matter about your hearing, your vision, sensory issues, disabilities, other medical issues. It's just part of being human. And humans want interaction. We innately want interactions to work and be successful so we can have that sense of belonging and that sense of safety. Quality interactions as building blocks. Interactions have 2 parts. There's serve and there's return. That serve and return turn-taking is the foundation for building resiliency. And interaction is the vehicle of communication. It supports communication, and communication really rides on interaction. You can think of interaction kind of like a big umbrella, and underneath it you have all different sorts of modes of communication. That sustained and harmonious interactions with turn-taking are the foundation for building communication. And continuous communication is what builds and develops abstract language. Interaction supports that development of the shape and the wiring of the brain and all of the connections that are inside of it. Moments of joy. Interaction is filled with so many different of these moments of joy. And moments of joy is something that Jan van Dijk really emphasized and thought was so important for quality of life. Connections, relationships, it's a real thing, and it's important to pay attention to these moments of joy. For me, moments of joy mean when a child is laughing, they're smiling, they've got a bright face. And it's not when they're alone, but when they're in a connected relationship together, and both interaction partners are in that moment of joy together. You can't teach that to a child, it just comes from within. And interaction really supports that. Moments of joy also include resonance. That's trust between the 2 of you. Having joint attention, with nothing to distract you, no phones or anything, just being engaged with one another. That could be through gaze visually or through touch. It's the same for both. Following the child's lead, it's about being curious about what they're doing, not what I want, but figuring out what their topic is. And attunement. Attunement is when, during an interaction, both partners, their brains are synced up together. You could say they're kind of on the same wavelength. Attunement is another really important part of interaction. Now we're going to talk about the power of touch. Touch is something that everyone benefits from across the board, but it's especially important for deafblind people of all ages. Touch requires mutual respect, trust, working together, collaboration, equality, and interconnectedness. I want to take a moment to point out the importance of the hands. For deafblind people, hands means communication. It means information. It's how they might read you or listen to you. I really can't emphasize enough how important the hands are for deafblind people. But touch also includes the entire body. It can be any part of the body, and different parts of the body should be available for touch. The power of touch also includes being open and ready for surprises. This might look like the child is doing something different and unexpected. You, as the adult, might be a little bit taken aback or surprised, but if you continue in that interaction and go with it, you can be delighted in that and have a lot of fun with it, with something that the other person started. What can come from being open to these surprises is genuine and deep conversations that involve great turn taking, exploring, and time to really expand on their topics. It's not about managing or controlling the conversation, but about letting it flow and being led by the child or the student. Interaction is a human experience. Suzanne Z. Dyke in 2012 said, "Babies are born already interested in the people around them. Our brains are built for socialization." And studies have shown babies that have typical vision and hearing will imitate facial expressions, sounds, or movements that their caregivers are making in order to get a response. And if they don't get a response, even young babies will show distress in their facial expressions. They might do some avoidant head turning, and their heart rate increases. Our deafblind children can be at risk for stress if adults are unable to notice and follow their initiations, and if they're unable to develop that back and forth reciprocal interaction. This should really automatically happen for our deaf and deafblind children in the same way that it happens for hearing and sighted children, too. Play and resilience. The good news is that we can connect and become attuned with one another. One of the most powerful and positive ways to form healthy attachments and support that emotional self regulation and co regulation is through play. This comes from the National Institute for Play in 2024. Interaction and that serve and return is not only for a healthy and happy life, but research really has shown us that in addition to being a requirement for a happy life, it's also a foundation for building resilience. And that's something that we all need. Quality interactions are an important part of a happy life, which is what we are biologically wired for and what we expect. It's especially important to remember to spend time creating an environment that nurtures deep connections with that serve and return with our students and our children. So, this Brain Architects podcast from Harvard talks about three concepts that stand out about development. First is the importance of supportive relationships. Second is the need to reduce significant sources of stress. And third is building core skills. Those are the skills that we need for success in everything that we do in our lives. This relates to active play and interaction. You really can't become resilient in a vacuum. Without that interaction and that turn taking, one can't figure it out alone. It requires that serve and return. And you have to be willing to be nurtured in a relationship that is mutually supportive. Making interactions accessible. We have to respond to and affirm the child in the same way that they receive information. We have to match the way that their senses perceive. Also, they might express themselves in different ways with different modes of communication. So, we should really look at what they're communicating as a comment, not always as a request, because there's different ways that we communicate. Comments, requests, refusals, etc. And if we open our mind to the possibilities that they're commenting on something, that can really enrich our conversations. And if their intention really is a request, they'll add the information. And then at that point, we can treat it as a request. We have no difficulty understanding instinctively how to affirm things that typically sighted and hearing children do. In fact, they demand it. In 1975, there was an experiment conducted with a mother and her baby. It opened with a quality interaction between the two, and then the mother put on a completely still face. She had no response to the baby for 3 minutes. That baby became wary, confused, anxious. It thought it was in danger. Children who are deafblind need affirmations too. They're human. They require the same interconnectedness that we all need for a happy and healthy life. Their topics, however, might be less clear to us and harder to read because they're not always pointing at things and then looking at us to respond. They might touch something instead, and that's how they're letting us know their topic. And we can touch it with them, and that's a tactile way of letting them know in a way that they perceive that we're on the same topic. What qualities best describe a good interaction partner? Take a moment to reflect on this question. What do you think makes someone a good interaction partner? What are the things that they do that make you recognize them as a good interaction partner? The power of wonder. As we've studied interactions, that includes learning from our favorite teachers, which is families and their children and young adults who are deafblind, we're reminded about the power of wonder. That allows us to go deeper and have longer conversations and interactions with our students and with our loved ones. Great quote to remember this by is by Gunnar Vega. He's an international deafblind expert who lives in Norway, who said, "It is the interested person that becomes the person of interest." So when we're interested in ways that are clear to the person who's deafblind, they in turn become more confident and they're more eager to interact with us. As their interaction partners, we need to make sure that the topics are led by what the child or young adult shows as their interests in that moment. We need to be good at communicating that we notice their serves and returns in a way that's accessible and meaningful to them. We notice that by following their gaze, which can be done through the visual auditory, and tactile senses. Remember, tactile attention and focus can be anywhere on the body. I want to tell a quick story about my son, Orion. Recently, he fractured his leg, and I noticed that something was different in his body language. His laughs became a little bit more high strung, and it seemed like he was in distress. And so when I touched around his body, I noticed him lifting his leg, and I knew something was up. So we went ahead and went to the ER and showed a fracture in his bone. Later, a while later, we were at home, and Orion was showing me that he wanted my support to get up and go somewhere, do something. I wasn't sure what, because he was on the bed, and there was a chair pulled up next to the bed. So Orion kind of got my hands under him, letting me know he wanted some help. So I thought he wanted to go on to the chair that was next to the bed. But as he got under the chair, he wasn't fully on it. He wasn't really settling in, so it was clear he didn't want the chair. So we pushed that away. And he got up on his left leg. He stood up holding his right leg up. Um, and he hopped with me behind him. And so we hopped together. We went to the table. I thought maybe he wanted some food. We touched the table. Nope, he turned his body away and kept hopping. So we went along. He touched the other bed. It wasn't that. We hopped along. So we went back to the first bed just to check that out. And it was not that. So we just kept hopping along. We kept on going, making it into the bathroom. As soon as he touched the bathroom counter with a sink on it, I could see his whole body relax. He had both hands on the counter, he was facing it, and his body relaxed. And then he turned on the water and washed his hands. And that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to wash his hands. At the beginning of this interaction, I didn't know what he wanted. I just had to follow him around to all these different things. And finally, I could see when we were where he wanted to be. Steps of an interaction. Earlier, I shared about serve and return. The serve is from the person who's initiating the interaction, which means they're taking the lead. The return is from the interaction partner, following the other partner's lead by responding in a way that is accessible and meaningful to them. So when a child is young or still developing their interaction skills and their confidence, we need to keep the serve in their domain, in their world as much as possible. They serve and we return. Later, as the child grows and develops, the adult can do more of the serving. Dr. Van den Tillert calls that the exchange of leadership in a conversation. As the communication partner, this really means it's about you taking the lead, making it clear, saying, I'm going to follow your lead. And then once we have a nice rhythm, I might ask you to follow my lead. Keeping this interaction exchange in mind, let's look at the steps of an interaction a bit more in detail as we learn from Dr. Van den Tillert. Steps of an interaction. First is to recognize. Quality interaction can't happen if it's not clear to each partner that someone's initiating the interaction. As the interaction partner with any other human, especially congenitally deafblind individuals, we need to communicate that we notice their initiations in a way that are both accessible and meaningful to them. It's important to maintain the attitude of presumed competence. The second is contact. That's the hello in the interaction. It begins with noticing and then by getting closer in proximity to each other. For some, this might need to be with a request, making physical contact after getting their permission. That hello can be done by using greeting rituals. It should always involve a request and permission to join. The child or individual serves and we return. This is when we share attention with the child on their topic, depending on the person's communication skills. For people with emerging communication skills or early in their developmental stage of interactions, this can be through imitation and participating in a turn-taking game. For people who have more abstract language or developed trust with the people following their serves, it can also be through commenting. During these early steps in an interaction, it's essential that we follow these few things. The child leads an interaction at least 3 serve and return cycles. That keeps the lead in the child's domain, and it's really crucial for them to build trust, confidence, and to build their skills. The topic must be the child's topic, and affirmation should be given in their preferred mode. A new consideration is something called co-presence. That's maintained contact. We're learning from our friends who are leading the pro-tactile movement and from our students that co-presence is really necessary. Co-presence is where both partners in the interaction are able to follow the actions of the other, of what they're doing or what they're not doing. This really supports incidental learning, it supports shared experiences, opportunities to problem solve together, to help one another, and maintain contact without the need to re-establish contact. The serve and return exchange should continue until there is either a change in the topic or there is a change in leadership. For example, if you're the interaction partner, take the lead and take a serve for a bit. Goodbye rituals. The goodbye rituals show that an interaction is wrapping up. Like a lot of social encounters, this might take a few more serves and returns so everyone is satisfied with their closure. You know, there's a lot of different cultures out there. Goodbyes take forever. A goodbye ritual can also be individualized. Ending contact. This is when proximity is no longer within arm's reach. In the deafblind community, we now have ways to convey we'll be right back or that we're leaving. Rupture and repair cycle. In a quality interaction, about a third of our time is spent in each of these stages. The first one is relate. That's the stage where emotional intimacy is developed. The second one is rupture. That's where there's natural breakdowns in an interaction. And it is natural, it happens. And the third is repair. That's ongoing experiences during the repair process that lead to resilience and trust. The real takeaway here is that making up is more important than messing up. The rupture and repair cycle gives us good news with 2 different points here. First, and maybe most encouraging, is that every interaction has ruptures and they can be repaired. Most of the time, it happens without any effort. And sometimes we do have to be intentional to repair the rupture in the interaction. The other good news is that the process of repairing not only builds resilience in each person, but it also builds trust in the relationship. Quality interactions help with isolation and behavior. In the Sense of Texas podcast with Matt Schultz who's one of our former Texas Deafblind Project team members and a co-author of the behavior guidance tool, he shared the following on how isolation and behavior can be addressed through quality interactions. Saying, I think children that feel isolated from communication partners, from people, and from things and events in their environments will feel a sense of emotional distress and will communicate that sense of distress often in ways that we as educators perceive as behavior. But I have seen that when people make a shift to follow the student's lead in a way that they understand and have that back and forth serve and return interactions, it can really resolve some of that. And the student over time, it might take a long time, but when they feel really rooted in their environment and feel like they're a communicator, we see those processing times and that executive functioning start to build. We see kids being able to control their impulses more and to regulate their emotions and to learn coping skills and strategies, learning to take deep breaths when they're feeling frustrated. Or they might learn instead of throw something or pushing something off the table, they can walk over to their calendar system and look for a symbol to better communicate their need. We see those skills develop as a result of positive and balanced interactions. So, what Matt shared is founded on our collective experiences as professionals and family members and confirmed in our current research. So let's watch some more videos of families interacting with their children or young adults who are deafblind. Each video shows a different communication style. As you watch them, see if you can identify each step in their interactions. Again, the steps include: first, recognize, noticing the communication initiatives and presuming competence. Second, contact. That's that hello, the greeting rituals, and permission to join. Third, the child or individual serves and we return. We can do that by imitating, play, commenting, having the child lead the interaction for at least 3 turns, the topic being the child's, and affirming in their preferred mode. That serve and return continues until one of 2 things happens. One is a change in topic or an exchange of leadership, who's taking the lead. Fourth, the goodbye ritual. And last, ending contact. The power of touch. Remember, it's not only about the hands, but it involves the entire body. Practicing presence and co-presence, and enjoying moments of joy through connection and play. And what other strategies can you think of that would support quality interactions? Want to learn more? We have some of our favorite resources on interactions and connections. And we've also shared references that you can continue learning and developing how to build trusting relationships with friends and family members who are deafblind.